Welcome to Certain Point of View, your first step into a much nerdier world. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on iTunes. Just go to certainpov.com. Thanks. And now your hosts, Ben Milton and Addy Thomas.
Hey Nerf Herders, I'm Addy Thomas.
And I'm Ben Milton.
Thanks for joining us. Don't forget, you can follow all the everything from Weight Loss Civil War to our social media to Patreon on our website, certainpov.com. And we're just going to jump right into the episode right now because we are talking, well, one, we have a special guest.
Hello. My name is Gabby.
Hi, Gabby.
Hi.
We know each other through a mutual friend that, I work with him and you date him.
Yes.
So I think I know him a little bit better. A little more intimately. But the reason we're having you on the podcast is because you were part of a Buffy the Vampire Slayer podcast.
Yes, I was for 6 years, I believe we recorded.
That's a good run.
That is a really good run.
Almost about as long as the series was on television.
Yeah, because it was 7 seasons?
I believe so.
I think it was 7 seasons.
Yeah.
I listened to some of the episodes, and what you guys did was you went and like live reaction videos.
Sometimes
audio.
yes.
So those are the ones that I listened to.
Those are the ones that would be special content every now and again. But basically, how it started was a friend of a friend put out on Twitter one day, "Hey, I'm bored. Who wants to do a podcast? Who wants to watch Buffy with me?" She had watched it, by the way, the entire series about 4 times.
Wow.
And her idea was to have a group of newbies versus
probies.
Yes.
And
I'm
going to go with it.
Sure, why not? Yeah, veterans, as it were.
There it is.
And and we watched every single episode. I had never seen the series before in my life. I had watched the movie, really liked the movie because of its campiness, thought the show was going to be like that. No, it was not. But I stuck with it. We watched every single episode, and it took forever because instead of watching everything weekly or a couple episodes at a time and recording, life happens. We're 4 different people, 2 of which, 4 different people, 4 different time zones, 2 different countries, plus guests. Having to coordinate that from different countries as well, it was a bit of an undertaking.
Yeah, the logistics of podcasting, because it's not live and we're not professionals and don't have real studios. We're in Addy's basement at the moment. It's a challenge.
Oh, yeah.
It is a challenge to do this on a weekly basis or even monthly basis for some people. Putting out content on regular is a big deal. And you said it took you 6 years to go through the entire series?
Roughly, yeah. We started in 2010. And
gosh, who else was podcasting then? It was you and Kevin Smith.
Yeah, and look how far I've come.
This American Life.
Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, again, we would go over the episode. How was oh my gosh, I've kind of blocked some of it out. I've got some
when
kind
did
of
you stop? When did it run its course?
I went to go look back. I can't remember. It was either late 2015 or 2016 we finally stopped. But towards the end when
when we were starting.
Yeah, roughly the time we started mixing it up where we were doing Buffy and Angel at the same time because we were watching. Then we started watching them in order. So if Buffy in real life took a week off and it was an Angel episode, then we'd watch Angel.
So you had to track release dates and everything?
Yes.
You guys are way more dedicated nerds than we are.
I just watched an episode and BS'd about it. That's all I did.
That's all any of us do.
Yeah, half the time I'd zone out. I'm not gonna lie.
So you're a huge fan of the show.
I'm a huge fan of the show. Sometimes I would. Well, some of the episodes I did not particularly care for, and I was very vocal about not caring for them. And then if I get shut down, I honest to God would kind of zone out, and then I would just talk about the fashion. because that was the only thing, or some kind of continuity error that I would just focus on and just keep bringing up to be an asshole, basically, just over and over and over. At the end, we would talk about the episode, things that happened. We would give a rating, and I got to the point where my rating system went from numbers to guttural sounds. So it would be like on an episode, on a scale from boo to woohoo, I give it a meh. I mean, that was my rating system at one point. Because at that point, it was one of those things where I liked the show. I'm sure we can go into some more, but there were just certain aspects that I hated so much, but I had dedicated myself to do this thing from start to finish, and I wasn't going to quit. But I wasn't necessarily going to be happy about it.
Yeah.
So there.
I think we've all had that experience of like, well, I'm just gonna see this thing through. You especially will hold on to an episode, show or something.
We've said
even
this
if you
before.
don't like
I have like overcommitment issues with TV shows. Like I'll be the last person who's still watching a show, and like 45% of its audience has already disappeared, and I'm still going through because I'm hoping something will pay off somewhere after all that investment.
Dexter, me.
Oh yeah.
I stuck it out to the end with Dexter.
Ooh. I had a hard time getting into that show. I tried, and I was like, I don't want to watch a movie or a weekly show where they're like the hero is a serial killer. Like, that just doesn't feel great to me at this point in my life. But my wife loved that show. Bless her heart, man.
She loves crime shows in general.
She does. So she went into that show, and then like, so I watched it peripherally, and so like there was just sort of like this. Like me, like kind of like looking over her shoulder occasionally, like, oh Lord, this is really. And it kept getting worse and worse and worse until even Jenny was just like, oh my God, are you kidding me with this show? She stuck it out and finished it though.
Yeah, that's why I started like avoiding shows until I usually want to now I'd like to wait till they're canceled and or actually just wrapped up, and then hear what people have to say about them by the end. And that's why I was able to avoid Dexter, because I heard I heard enough bad things by the end. And I was like, why am I going to watch this show?
But I'm of the mind where if I watch an entire series, no matter how bad it ends up being, with my eyeballs, somebody else has to go through the same torture I went through. So
you're going to drag people through.
And that's why we started podcasting.
I'm like, no. Yeah, so that's how another side podcast ended up.
Let's talk real quickly about Buffy, though.
Okay.
What was your take on? Like, I've watched Buffy. I haven't finished it by any stretch. I mean, like, I was a very hit and miss.
I'm only 7 episodes into the entire series.
I'm a huge
2 years ago.
I'm a huge Sarah Michelle Gellar fan, in a creepy way.
We all are.
Yeah, it's okay. And it was completely intentional. But yeah, I liked the show. I didn't love the show.
Same. Basically, where you are is kind of in the sweet spot for me personally, because again, I like the campy, I like the ridiculous, I like the monster of the week. That's kind of my thing. That's why I love the first couple of seasons of Supernatural so much, and then kind of checked out when they got into mythology. But it was one of those things where it was kind of hard. I mean, it was fun to watch, but it was a little hard to get into because obviously at this point, jump ahead, to 2010. I'm not the demographic for the show.
What?
Anymore from when it was first out. And when it was first out, I kind of was, but it was at a completely different place in my life, which is why I had never watched the show and why I was kind of attracted, because I had friends and coworkers that watched the show, loved the show, and then at that point, there was like the girl power thing was going on, and I'm like, well, this seems like something I'd really dig. And as I started watching it, it became apparent that beloved characters were ones that I particularly didn't care for, that they were whiny, or I don't know, just kind of the situations that they'd be in. I know it's a fantasy show and there's vampires and there's witches and all this other stuff. Sometimes I'd have a hard time taking reality out of it. But ultimately,
just because it's fantasy doesn't mean that it can't be believable.
There
was some stuff that was ridiculous, like a vampire that smokes. You can't really when you think about it.
Yeah, what are the logistics on that?
I don't know. It's so bizarre. And
do they breathe?
They're
They're dead.
They're dead.
Ish.
and they shouldn't be able to. But
they're not dead; they're undead.
Oh, you're right.
I
But
think
there's
they breathe.
magics involved.
But you
I
can't
don't know.
suffocate. It's not like you can suffocate them.
But you're dead. All of your everything about you that makes you
Not
a
everything,
living,
if you know what I mean.
breathing. I know. Spike an angel.
Yeah, especially
Yeah.
when you start talking vampires,
Yeah,
man.
it's so
There's
bizarre.
certain parts of the anatomy that always work.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where it was kind of fun watching her like grow up. We'll watch the characters grow because they start
Right.
in high school and then get out into the real world, and that transition was kind of interesting. And they tried to broach certain subjects that were taboo at the time, and it was kind of interesting how Joss Whedon went about doing that, but. And there were all these supposed groundbreaking episodes that it seemed to me like every groundbreaking episode were ones that I ended up not particularly caring for whatever reason, being vocal about it and getting just straight up hate.
From fans?
From fans. Ooh, big time hate.
Just because you didn't like it or because like you weren't...
Because I didn't agree with that.
Agree with their agenda or their interpretation of what that meant.
Yeah, like I do not care for musicals. And I've gone on record saying that a million times.
Yeah.
The moment Once More with Feeling comes out, we watch it, and I'm just like, hey guys, didn't think it was the greatest thing in the world. Because again, not a fan of musicals and no great mystery. Been talking about this for years now. I mean, just the hate, even the guest that we had on was just like ripping into me and telling me I was wrong.
What?
Yeah, it was crazy.
What is it about our nerd culture? Like that's not exclusive to Buffy fans.
It's not exclusive to nerd culture either, especially after this past election. It has made it very clear.
So what is it about culture that like we feel entitled to be able to say, not only do I disagree with your assessment of your opinion, but you're a fucking idiot for not thinking like me.
Basically, yes. I
don't understand, like, how did that happen? Like, how did we get there? And why is it, especially with a show like with Buffy, you're talking about, girl power, you're talking Joss Whedon, you're talking about a lot of really, like you said, like for its time, great strides forward in that genre and that type of storytelling. And people will either shit on it so badly that you don't want to watch it or want to be part of it, or they'll be so critical of it or of any kind of nerd culture that you're like, I can't access it now. Like it's become so like we've built these things up in ivory towers, and we've created these little like camps and these little groups of like, this is good, this is bad, and if you don't think like me, then you're in the bad camp, and it gets crazy really quickly. It gets really great. Like we're Star Wars fans, and I mean, there was it was a year or two ago. There was the big controversy about now that Disney owns Star Wars. Like all of a sudden, all of the Princess Leia bikini slave Leia stuff all disappeared, and there was like, you're not allowed to call her slave Leia anymore. And there was all this this backlash against like oh, how barbaric is this and stuff.
Well, and then on the other side, we also had the backlash against like suddenly like a black stormtrooper popped up in a teaser, literally popped up in a teaser, and then everybody like reacted like crazy.
Stormtroopers aren't black. How do you know? We've only seen
We've never
none. We've only seen none. We've only seen one, and he's black. So as far as I know, they're all black. How do I know? I don't. Yeah, like how did we get there? Like I feel like. It is a problem across culture, but I feel like in nerd culture, like it is super aggressive.
Yeah.
From that like shut down the opposition idea of like, if we disagree with you, you must be silenced.
People feel a weird ownership of these stories. And it's so personal for them because people always talk about it like, and it's easier when you're criticizing the Transformers movies because they're objectively bad.
There's almost nothing good about those movies.
No.
But it's always talked about as like, oh, well, Michael Bay is shitting on my childhood, is the way people phrase it. And I think that's where we've taken it way too personal. As bad as those movies truly are, It's just another interpretation that, in this case, is a crappy telling, but let's stop taking it so personally. Let's let people tell their stories, and if they're bad, just vote with your time to not watch it, or like don't bother with it, or if you want to criticize it, but don't make it so personal.
Yeah, I know. I mean, in our finale episode, we went back and talked about like, well, what did you like about this ride? What didn't you? What have you learned and all that? And I try to be respectful because I do understand that, a lot of people did grow up with this show, especially a bunch of little girls. And that, they were the same age as Buffy when they started watching it. They were going through the same stuff, like, having, getting their heart crushed by some douchebag guy for the first time, or, falling in love with somebody that's older than them, and dealing with some of, in the case of Willow, the character, dealing with coming out as a lesbian and all this kind of other stuff. And my heart goes out to the people that watch this show and watch it multiple times, and it just means so much to them. It's a part of themselves. Again, I was in a different place in my life when the show started. I wanted to just do this as a hobby. I thought it would be fun. And to me, what I ended up getting out of the experience, hey, it's another TV show I can mark off my list of shows that I've watched. And to me, it gave me really cool experiences. Like, I met people that I never would have met otherwise through the community. I had a chance to go to Comic-Con in 2012 and meet these cool people and go to a Joss Whedon panel. We used to call him Josh Eden as a joke. And
I'm sure you're not the only ones.
And it was so cool because as newbies, we were spoiler free to the point where when they had the big reveal that Angel was a vampire, I was shocked because I genuinely did not know that Angel was a vampire because it wasn't part of my peripheral in that time of my life. But the fans, the listeners were so good about keeping spoilers away that even when I was at Comic-Con and walking by where the comic book section was, because it's very small. When you're in San Diego, it's a very little small section where the comic books actually are. Friends of mine were with me, and they literally were put blinders on me so that I wouldn't see a picture thinking it would spoil me.
Wow.
That's
good friends.
Yeah,
right, it is, but I'm one that doesn't give a crap about spoilers and never really did. But for the sake of the show, that was part of the shtick, that we literally had no idea. So we would make predictions about what would happen. And at the beginning, I even made a prediction that ended up being dead on down the line. And I was accused of having been fed information and being a ringer.
Yeah, because you can never guess what's going to happen on a TV show.
Yeah, there's never been predictability.
And I'm like, I'm not stupid. I've watched a lot of TV in my life.
I've seen TV. I read a book once. It'll be all right.
Yeah, but I got to travel and meet a lot of people, and and I would never, and it helped me. I was in a really dark place in my life with some personal stuff that I was going through. So doing the podcast and talking to my friends once a week or every other week or something in my little room with the lights out, drinking my glass of wine or whatever, it was a nice escape, and it was a way for me to do me.
Right.
Basically, which was, and that's what I took away from it.
Yeah. I think we have a similar experience for you
absolutely.
and I. And we're obviously we love Star Wars. We love nerd culture. We talk about it every week and more often.
Surround ourselves with as much nerd gear as possible.
My children's college fund is not looking great right now. I'm not gonna lie. Sorry, kids.
Trade schools, kids.
Trade school it is. I hope you like welding, Aiden, when you come back and listen to this later. It seems to me, going back to what you were saying, Addy, about how people take this so personally, and we've talked about this before, of how it's a mythology.
It's their religion.
And it's a religion. It becomes a religion for us who really get into it. And, that's offensive to people who have quote unquote real religion, but the stories are the same. The lessons are the same. The morals are the same. You're changing the names of the gods and you're changing the settings. And sometimes they are gods. They're just changing their names. But the idea is the same. The mythology is the same. The mythology of, dying to self and coming back and, overcoming adversity and all these things are all integral in all of these stories, even in Buffy.
Yeah.
And there's life lessons to be learned in there. And I think that's one of the reasons why nerds take it so personally.
I think also, though, there's been this kind of this mentality of, and it's funny that I'm saying this on a podcast, but you have to be able to express yourself. And I think people forget that they need to process their thoughts before they express themselves. Because it's always the visceral reactions. And it's people putting those out there. Because, putting it in terms of like being offended. Like everyone gets offended at some time or another. It's about processing that thought and putting it out there. Like just a couple things. Like very easily, like if I see someone mention that they liked the prequels and thought they were great movies, like I firmly believe they are categorically bad. But the thing is, that was someone's into Star Wars. Someone really thought Jar Jar was cool. And I've talked to them, and I'm just like, I can't, that doesn't resonate with me. That, like, to me, that feels just as, like, as much of a conflict as, like, something happening on the Gaza Strip. That feels like that kind of, like, explosive imagery comes to mind. Like, missiles are just going over the walls, at that moment.
That's passion right there.
Right?
Wow.
But like that, they are so categorically wrong in that moment.
I can't disagree with you.
Right? but I've heard them talk about it, and they're like, Jar Jar's the shit. I love him, and I don't I can't understand that, And by the same token, like something a little less like explosive. Like I was watching a review the other day for Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and I've been raving about it constantly since watching it. It really resonated with me. I really like it. But like someone was talking about, well, they didn't like this, and this aspect about it, or like this particular the way they split up the team. Where like I like the aspect of that movie and what it does with those characters. And I was just like, why can't you see like
the power of that?
Yeah, like how effective that was in that kind of character development. But it's but again, that's if I become that guy in a YouTube comment section that says you guys are just straight up wrong, then I guess we've enabled people to be so free with just expressing themselves viscerally rather than, all right, like process what that person is looking at and why this may not have resonated with them or why this did resonate with them. Why, Jar Jar was the shit for them.
What went wrong in your life?
Right.
Jar Jar was the shit. My God,
Wow.
man, you need therapy. You need help.
I'm going to say there's got to be support groups for that
Oh, I'm
because
sure.
no.
Jar Jar wasn't great.
But while I don't agree,
It is
I
your
can
right.
respect the
Yeah,
fact that that is
exactly.
your
Yeah.
opinion, which seems to be kind of a problem
Right.
out there.
That's just it. There's no nuance. There's no ability of people to say, well, that's your opinion and I disagree with your opinion. And now let me tell you why. There isn't that discussion. There isn't that respect. There's just, you're an idiot, you're wrong, and I'm going to shut you down for it. And that's where I draw the line on it. I mean, like, we've said some dumb things. I've said some dumb things.
We've said that. TIE fighters don't have shields.
Thank you. Thank you for finally saying that. That feels good.
I'm editing that clip out.
I know you will. Damn it. I gotta start editing this show again. But like you and I, we've passionately disagreed about Ewoks.
Oh yeah,
and we continue to this day. And you'll never change my mind about those demon little spawn, soulless
exactly
eyes,
what made him help him win.
unblinking devil bears. But we've never we've said some shitty things to each other, but never like seriously. I've never really meant
that's true.
the things that I've said about
I've
you.
meant a couple things, but
those are probably true though, to be fair.
Yeah. Even you knew they were true.
Well, that's true. So I just wish that we could talk about these things passionately. I love the passion that nerd culture has. I love the passion that people bring to Buffy. They bring to Star Wars. They bring to Marvel. They bring to DC. Not Superman though. I just wish that they would like bring that passion and respect along with it, and everything that we do. We're going to be at BlurredCon, which is like celebrating diversity in comics and nerd culture. And I'm super excited about that. For us to be able to be there is a big deal for us. Like that's our very first con that we're being invited to. And, that's going to be a lot of fun. And I love like their message of diversity. But to me, diversity doesn't mean like, it doesn't mean that pandering, and it doesn't mean that you just have to do something just for the sake of diversity, that it has to make sense.
Yeah.
I want to see different ethnicities and sexes and stuff represented in comics and in nerd culture, but not just for the sake of doing it, and not just because keyboard warriors are out there of like, we need more diversity, No, we need good stories. Ultimately.
Yes.
Ultimately, that's what we need. And if you can make good stories and have diversity at the same time, you just need to do it in a way that makes sense.
And that's where I agree with you, but I think it is slightly naive to just kind of assume that it's just going to happen.
Right.
Because the natural trend of Hollywood is to do whatever is working, and that,
to do whatever is selling.
Exactly. Whatever, like, you have to prove that something is going to sell. There are few instances where Hollywood is, and TV, that they're actually willing to take risks. It's much easier to convince someone if, like, all right, it hits all four quadrants. You got a marketable celebrity to run with this movie. It's hard to say, like, you know what, this story requires taking an Asian actor that someone doesn't, like, they don't really know, and to say, or a female lead, and to say, like, this could really work. I mean, fortunately with Star Wars, like, we got that with Leia. It was a big risk to get there. At one point Lucas wanted to go with an all Asian cast with it, but they had to go with what was gonna, like, they have to make certain compromises. But I think there's got to be some intention to try to integrate. And I don't want, I agree with you. I don't want forced pandering. I don't want, here, like, I don't want it to look like the brochure for some random drug where you're hitting every,
that is the perfect description, though. Like, that is the epitome of pandering.
Yeah.
Like, that's so annoying to me.
And that's been an issue, I think, recently with Marvel, like, where you have, all right, well, all our main heroes are now different ethnicities and different genders. Like, you've got, female Thor, which I think is one that has been doing well. But then you have, like, Iron Man is now a teenage black girl. And right, like, they had to rename her Ironheart, and then you have an Asian kid who's the Hulk, and then but then they also had ones that did work, like the Pakistani Miss Marvel, and Miles Morales as another Spider-Man. So, like, it takes effort and it takes failure. The problem is sometimes those failures Hollywood's going to interpret as, well, diversity doesn't work, so let's go back to what we think works. And you get a lot more of the same. And I think it's just, we have to just have to realize it does go both ways with that.
I think you have to ask, why didn't it work? Why did it fail?
In certain instances, it is pandering. But do you think the attempt to do, so Ms. Marvel is a good example, I think is a perfect example, because they are taking the brand of an already successful hero and trying to use that to pivot into, a different market, a different, to hit that diversity. So that's what they tried to do. They saw the success of that, and they tried to do that with everything. And of course, yes, it was forced. It wasn't sincere. It was pandering. But
I don't think in that case, I don't think it was pandering. I don't think Miss Marvel was pandering.
You don't think there was an intention of, like, all right, we know this character works, so we're going to use the credibility of that brand and try it out? As opposed to trying to make new original characters.
Well, no, but the way they wrote her story and stuff like that, and that her hero worship of Miss Marvel and, like, her desire to be the typical blonde bombshell superhero, and being a young Pakistani girl in America. And that imagery and the fact that, we're at war in Pakistan. Like, to me, that didn't feel like pandering. To me, that felt like good storytelling. Mm-hmm. I mean, the fact that she's an Inhuman, like, I mean, they did a really good job of making that character work for me. Like, to me, that one didn't feel like pandering. It felt like good storytelling. So that one I take a little exception in of it being pandering. Some of the others, absolutely, I feel like it's pandering, that they're just like, well, all right, well, let's see. We got to hit this quadrant. Let's turn this kid into whatever and do that. And that feel, I guess, again, it goes back to good storytelling.
But sometimes things fail because of maybe there's a showrunner change. Right. Or because a network doesn't have enough faith in something, and they'll change the times and days around. They'll change the order that something is played in. but sometimes the storytelling is why something fails. And I know for a fact especially with the Whedonverse,
Right.
that the fans are so passionate about literally everything that man has done that, again, we used to joke and call him Jossus because it was like he could do no wrong. He was the second coming. And it's like, I got news for you. Not everything that he's put out there in the world for us for entertainment has been good.
Ask Black Widow fans. I mean,
oh my God, so much stuff has been bad.
Drove him off of Twitter. They were so angry with how he treated that character in Avengers 2, which I have my own issues with. No, it's not perfect. I mean, it's a collaborative effort, especially when you start talking TV and movies. Like, there's no one person who has like complete and total control of what happens in that final product. And even into comic books, like, there's editors and artists and stuff like that. It's a collaborative process. So, there's very few people have total control of that whole thing. It's a complicated issue for sure, and there's no easy answers. I agree. Like, you do have to kind of push against the status quo to get things to change. I agree with that. That's true. I don't know that. I don't know.
Well,
it seems to me that the market will dictate whether or not they want more diversity.
Yeah, and I think often because of. I'm going to throw it out here. I mean, social justice warriors have really made it difficult. Because I think a perfect example recently, just because people are so overly critical of it now, rather than waiting to see sometimes whether something is good or not. But Iron Fist is probably the best example in the news of how this has happened. Or if you go to Doctor Strange and the Ancient One with the movie, with the whole idea of whitewashing Asian characters. The character in Iron Fist always was white and went to, this mystical city and learned Kung Fu and came back and is a Kung Fu hero. So that's kind of the story. And I understand that a lot of people wanted to see them change it to an Asian person. And don't you end up having the exact
opposite stereotype?
Well, pretty much the same issue, because you're going with the stereotype of he's Asian, so obviously he's going to be good at it. Of course or with the Asian one, of course it's the wise and all-knowing, sage,
Asian guy, yeah.
It's like I think in that case, like, the producers are kind of stuck in a very awkward position. Like, I do not envy being the showrunner on Iron Fist, or the any producer or director for Doctor Strange in that scenario.
So what's the answer in that scenario? What do you do?
There's no easy answer on that one.
You just tell the social justice warriors, screw you, we're doing what we want?
I'd like to be able to say that.
But you can't do that.
I mean, they kind of do. I mean, they make the movie, right? I mean, they don't don't go on Twitter and just be like, whatever. Or in Joss's case, he just got off of Twitter for a while. But he told the story that he wanted to tell, or felt that he had to tell, and made sense in the universe that he was creating. I think that's what you have to do as an artist. As a podcaster, I don't ever want us to be in a situation of like pandering to our perceived fans or our perceived critics. I want to be able to say what I think about whatever I think about, and whether or not that's controversial or not is irrelevant. I don't like, we're talking about art, we're talking about mythology, we're talking about make believe, we're talking about stuff that's somewhat consequential, but at the end of the day, not really. Like, why are we getting so worked up about it? Like, why do we feel the need to yell and scream at each other? I guess because, again, it's that goes back to that it's so personally tied into our identities of who we are.
Well, because I mean, it's kind of it's a balance, because we have to realize that art does influence people, but we also influence art, so it goes both ways. It's not people, and I think we've hit, like, Ben and I always talk about this, especially with religion. It's like people seriously need to just take it less seriously, and we come from definitely heavy religious backgrounds where we value what we learned, but we're not easily offended by someone criticizing a religious belief. And I think for us it applies in the same way to to nerddom as well. That, look, these stories do inspire people in different ways. It does create it creates something to aspire to, like we're in Star Wars. When you watched it when you watched New Hope for the first time, was there like, who did you aspire to be like? Did you
Chewbacca?
And you tried to grow as much hair as possible.
I was 3. Yeah, I loved Chewbacca.
So diversity helped in that scenario.
I wanted to be a 7-foot hairy space dog. I loved Chewbacca.
Yeah.
Like, I was smitten.
Did
with
that change
Chewbacca.
when you grew up a little bit?
Yeah, I wanted to be Han Solo.
Okay, that's what I was hoping to get to.
My Empire Strikes Back, hormones kicked in, and I started to want to be Han Solo, and I really. Yeah, for sure. I get what you're saying there. Absolutely. But yeah, I wanted to be Chewbacca because he's loyal. He's cool.
Yeah.
He's got a great gun. He flies a spaceship. I mean, you didn't want to mess with him. You'd rip your arms off. I mean, what's not to like him? There's a lot to like about Chewbacca. Okay, don't look at me like, oh, Chewbacca, what's wrong with it? It's not Jar Jar, man.
Yeah, but it's like watching Beethoven and watching I want to be Beethoven. I've never heard anybody say that.
He is the star of the show, man.
Yeah, I guess.
He's the star. Everybody loves Chewbacca. Why are you upset about that?
No, it's just I didn't.
That's an
expect
interesting
that.
answer. I was thinking Luke.
Yeah, I was thinking Han immediately. I knew it was going to eventually be Han. Yeah.
I mean,
there's nothing Luke about you. Nothing that noble.
Honestly, I kind of like Darth Vader.
And you didn't have a sister to be into.
I guess I like tall guys. I like Darth Vader and Chewbacca. I have a type, apparently. I have a type. I like tall guys.
Tall, dark, furry.
Or breathing issues, apparently.
With breathing issue, with asthma.
Find me on Craigslist. Oh.
Taste evolve over time, yes.
Yeah, where were we going?
Who did you aspire to be like? But it was that was important to you at that time, right? And
yeah.
So,
I mean, it was helping me identify who I was and what was important to me. I was a really young kid growing up with Star Wars. So it was extremely influential on me. I mean, I watched that movie over and over and over and over and over again. Like, I remember seeing the special and like people are like, I watched Star Wars 67 times. And I was like, yeah, me too. Like, I've seen that movie too. And so it clearly like informed a lot of my identity. I mean, my dad died when I was young, and my mom, raised me pretty much as a single parent. I had a stepdad who didn't like me. So like fantasy was a major part of my life. And so, like for me, it was a religion. It was very identifying and helped me figure out the world and my place in it. And it provided escapism. It provided direction. It provided hope. It provided moral lessons, like all those things that I needed as a kid growing up and wasn't getting anywhere else.
Yeah. Well, so another thing, and we actually, so there was recently this news about, and it's funny, we each had two different reactions to this, but there was news about, I think it was Alamo Drafthouse did a women-only screening of Wonder Woman.
Don't even get me started on Alamo Drafthouse. Don't even get me started
I know I want to hear this.
on Alamo Drafthouse. I once lived in Austin. I lived in Austin for about 1.5 years. And I get that businesses grow and franchise and branch out, but it pissed me off like nobody's business when I found out that there was one like in Virginia. There's like one everywhere, and I'm like, no, that was my special thing when I was in Austin. I'm like, we would go watch the Godfather trilogy, and there'd be like Chianti and spaghetti and meatballs. I mean, it was ridiculous. We saw, oh my God, I remember Shaft when the reboot came out. And they had the original and then the new one, and with every ticket, you got a 40 ounce of Colt 45.
That's amazing.
It was amazing.
Best experience ever.
It was amazing. And if you got
J-Mike's face right now is priceless. You can't decide if he's horrified.
It was so. It's the same look I had when I first heard about it, but I'm like, why not? And if you got there early enough to the original Alamo Drafthouse, you sat in the back row, big, fluffy leather sofas, and you could just lay down and just chillax. And then,
Drink beer and watch
and drink beer and watch ridiculous movies. And whenever Quentin Tarantino was in town, he would just pop in, show up, just play whatever the fuck he wanted to play. It was amazing. And now they're everywhere.
I still haven't been to
Quentin
one.
doesn't show up to any of them. That son of a bitch.
He said Austin.
Now they're everywhere. And I'm like, and it just took the magic away from that place for me. And it just made me angry.
All right.
So, okay.
Well, first off, we need a
Done
plan to watch
ranting.
Shaft with 40s at this point. Like, this is just creating new weekend plans.
Hashtag to-do list. You in, J Mike? Yeah, he is. He's totally in. So they're doing a ladies only viewing of Wonder Woman.
And this is only one screening of like many screenings.
Right.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of when you exclude of other people. I'm just not. And while, I don't know, part of me is like, wow, it's kind of neat where all the ladies can sit down and watch this together. But I'm like, but why? Why do we have to have a special screening just for all women to go watch something? That seems absolutely ridiculous to me.
Addy?
That was his reaction.
And I'm a lady. And I think it's stupid.
I like tall men. So
That are hairy and have breathing
don't judge me.
issues.
I was like, sure, I guess that's fine. I mean, I don't like.
I'm not saying they can't do it. I guess my question is like, what's the point?
Well, but I mean, what's the point of also like? All right, so we do special exclusives for our patrons who would do a certain level of whatever, and like if we had a special event where we could bring them together.
But we don't say, all right, well.
But there's content that's exclusive to them that we don't give to anybody else.
Yes, but we don't say based on your sexual identification or your race, you're allowed to participate.
So let me ask you this: so if there was some sort of like special,
I'm like, oh.
So these are like circumstances you can't control, right?
Right.
Well, let me ask you. So if there was a certain event that was exclusive to people who watched Star Wars in 1977 for that like initial release, that was just for them. So like I wasn't even born then. I can't even get a chance to watch that. But you had a chance to go to a cool event like an event where you can like bond and hang out with people who did the same thing. Like that sounds cool, right? Like it's people that you have somewhat of a shared experience with, that you can connect with. Like that's part of what kind of connects us with these movies to begin with, is that, oh, you like Star Wars, I like Star Wars, and you know, maybe we have some common ground and we have a fun discussion. Like how many times we became friends because of Star Wars quotes.
I mean, first of all, we're not friends.
That's right, I met you through a Big Brother program.
I was looking for one. Thank you. It's nice to have something to do on Tuesday nights.
But the thing is, like, it's not. Yes, I get the idea that sure it's just like, I don't know. It's just another possible potential experience that people could enjoy if that's something that they're into. If not, like whatever. I mean, if you're not into it, don't go to the screening.
Well, I can't.
Well, did you want to go to that screening?
I mean, if I was single.
But I mean, it would be like, hey, there's a new Iron Man movie out. Only rich millionaire playboys are allowed to go see it.
Well, that's a
Wait a
premiere.
minute, what? I don't know. I feel like that would be frowned upon.
Yeah, I agree with Gabby's take of I don't like exclusion. You know, to me, diversity is supposed to be an inclusive idea. Right? Like the whole point of diversity is we want to include more people. We want everybody to feel welcome. And as soon as you say, well, this is just for this group, then I do have a problem with it. So to answer your question, if they said if you saw Star Wars...
Do you think there's something inherently
I don't
racist
think
about having
it.
a Korean grocery store? Because because the thing is that's to serve, you know, so this is my thing. I think there's I know, right? I'm ready. This is the quote that ends the podcast, guys.
Here we go.
I'm trying to bait Ben into a host change.
Horribly wrong. I don't like this conversation.
Well, but I think I think this is where we've taken diversity so far that we're offended by people wanting to maintain cultural identity,
Right.
as well. Because I think like there is something to be said for like I'm fine with being different.
But as soon as you say, but it's a totally different thing because you're saying, is it racist for somebody to have a Korean grocery store? They're not saying only Koreans can go to the goddamn grocery store. Anybody can go to a Korean grocery store.
Yeah,
it's not exclusive.
Right.
It's unique.
Yeah.
And it's celebrating its uniqueness, and it's providing a service and a view that isn't provided by other things. So yeah, no, I don't have a problem with that. That's not exclusive.
So here's the thing that I was reading that was kind of interesting with how different ethnic communities, especially in the U.S., kind of support each other. Like if you're Indian, like you're gonna do like, and you know someone who's Indian who has a business, you're gonna be a patron there because you want to support your community.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And and in the Black community, that's something that doesn't always happen, and that's
why I shop at the Gap.
I was about to say something, but I realized that clip would be very bad. Having to do with power. But the thing is, like, you have these cultures kind of support each other and maintains a certain degree of identity. So is there anything wrong with a cultural, like, in a sense, like, that's kind of a cultural gathering?
Here's how I think I would feel better about the Wonder Woman screening.
Like, should my family reunion be open to you?
No, because I'm not in your family. It's different. Here's how I think I would feel better about the Wonder Woman screening is if a bunch of women got together and said, hey, let's all get together and buy out the theater and do it.
I was afraid this was going to go in a very different direction. And there's a pillow fight.
Wait, is that not happening?
I thought that's why you wanted to go.
Well, I mean, I'd start the pillow fight. I'd try at least. You got to give me an A for effort. No, like if a bunch of women got together and said, "Hey, this is what we want," and went and bought this, and went to Alamo Drafthouse and said, "We want to have a private screening, rent the whole place out, and do it." And Alamo Drafthouse was like, "Fantastic! We'd love for you to do that. We feel really good about that."
But now that it was marketed,
but the fact that Alamo Drafthouse marketed it at, and it was their idea. That's where I kind of like. That's where I get uncomfortable.
That got weirded out.
Yeah, that's where I got
someone
uncomfortable.
Marketed it instead.
No, because
the idea that they had.
Yeah, because it wasn't.
That's
because,
the least
again,
libertarian thing I've ever heard
but
you say.
It probably is. But because it's exclusive, I don't like. That's the part that I'm like. I don't feel great about that from a libertarian standpoint of like everybody is welcome. Everybody should have the same access. That's where I kind of go, oh, I don't know, like it just doesn't go well for me. Like if it was like if Alamo Drafthouse said, hey, we're having a viewing of, I don't know, one of the newest Fast and Furious movies, and only white bros can come and see it.
But isn't that who's going to see it anyway?
I mean, right. And
that's who's just going to go.
Right. Oh, even better, Entourage.
We're
going to show Entourage, and it's only for white bros are allowed to come. Everybody would have a problem with that, right? Because as soon as you say, look, let's be honest. Let's
as
be
soon as you exclude anybody,
as soon as you say,
forget about
only
it.
For white males, all of a sudden everybody gets
but maybe we shouldn't
anxious about that.
Maybe we shouldn't have a problem with that. And no, honestly, maybe there shouldn't be a problem with that. Like,
see, that's how Nazi parties get started. It's a fine line.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I get that. That's totally how people would react to that. You know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the white bro culture has a long history of doing some shitty things.
Yeah.
Like, you got to watch us. Like that. We've earned that. Okay. Like, I get that. However, like. I don't like it. Like, you can have it this way, but you can't have it that way.
Yeah,
you know, like it's got to be the same across the board. Like, if you want fairness and you want equality, then let's make it equal, and let's make it fair. Like, you know, it's not okay for white bros to, you know, to get together, and it's not okay for you know, women of whatever race to hang. You know, it's just for them. It starts getting real nichey and excluding. Unless, of course, like, those groups decide this is what we want to do. But in a marketplace scenario, I guess that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, from a marketplace scenario, that's where I get uncomfortable with it.
It's kind of like the club mentality.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, only if you are between the ages of 21 and 23 and super high are you allowed in this club. It's kind of like that. It's like that exclusionary
or 55 and older communities. Screw you old people.
You so badly want to live in leisure.
Damn it, that makes me mad.
They get all the cool stuff.
They're the nicest communities in everybody's neighborhood. They're quiet. They're well kept. They're gorgeous.
There's a reason for that.
They have their own banks, their own grocery stores, their own dog. They don't have to leave.
But if I said, you know what, I'm going to build a community for just 35 to 45-year-old couples with 2 children, everybody would freak the hell out.
Isn't that what Columbia Heights basically?
I mean, that's what it turned out to be, yeah. But it's not official. It's not like a legal document saying you can't come into this neighborhood.
Yeah, but I guess there's a certain... It seems a little naive to think people won't market to a niche audience.
I don't mind marketing to a niche audience, but I do mind when you say, if you're not in that niche audience, you can't come.
Yeah.
That's where I draw the line.
I don't think anybody was advertising for tickets saying, fuck you if you're a white male, you can't go to this Wonder Woman screening. There are 19 other screenings to go to.
But you can't go to that one.
But you know darn well there's going to be some dude or a group of bros that are going to be like, we want to go in.
Oh, there already is. There's a huge backlash online.
It's
There's a big, huge Twitter on it. Yeah, people are upset about it.
And then next thing you know, it's a Trump rally, and it's a whole thing.
I'm not wearing a goddamn red hat. I'm not doing it. I don't look good in red. Nobody does. I don't care. It's stupid. It's just a poor fashion choice.
I can't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you.
Thank you. I don't mind. It's the, you know, and if even going with like the stupid baking a cake thing, like the gay couple wanted that bakery to bake them a cake, and they wouldn't because they were gay, religious beliefs. I'm sorry, but if you're offering a service to the public, you got to offer it to everybody. Mm-hmm. You don't get to say, I disagree with you, or I don't like you, I don't like the color of your skin.
You can very easily say, excuse any sort of racism with it the same way. So I get that. Yeah, it's a tough.
It's not tough. I'm right.
No, I'm not empowering you with that.
It is. It's a complicated issue. When you start talking about race and sex in this country, it gets very complicated and the muddy waters stir up very quickly, and people have really, really strong feelings. I'm sure that there's at least 6 listeners to this podcast who are furious with one of us right now. And the fact that I'm
J Mike just quit.
I just started a race war with J Mike. It's gonna be awesome. I'm not looking forward to it, although he is tall.
Okay, this is getting to a very weird place. Gabby, do you have anything to add? Because otherwise I'm wrapping this up.
I don't.
And I think it's best that you don't.
So now that the last thing you'll remember about this very intense podcast is that Ben is really into tall
guys.
Tall guys.
Yeah, I guess you got to shave to really keep
him off. There's a reason you lasted so long as my assistant, J Mike.
So on that note, don't forget you can check out our website for all sorts of stuff, everything from weight loss, Civil War, to all our social media, to what we do on Patreon, and if you want to be a part of the podcast. Again, all of that is on our website, certainpov.com. And until next week, stay scruffy, my nerf herders.
Thanks for listening to Certain Point of View. Don't miss an episode. Just subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on iTunes. Head over to certainpov.com.